Hello, beautiful people, and welcome Michelle Gray, extraordinary artist, channel, and healer. She is going to help Erik hopefully bring out David Bowie. Is it Bowie?
Bowie, yeah.
Oh God, I'm already embarrassing myself. Hi, Erik, I love you.
Erik says, "Hi, Mom, love you."
And by the
He says,
way,
"I brought a friend. I brought a friend."
oh good. And by the way, you guys, you can click on Michelle's link in the description box. You need to find out more about her. She's awesome. All right. So, hi, Erik. Hi, David. Or do I call you Mr. Bowie?
He says, "David is just fine. David's just fine."
Oh,
He
Dave.
really likes Erik.
Oh,
He says it. He says he's really not attached to the name. He says, "David, Dave, whatever you like." He says he's good with. He's sitting right beside Erik, and I can just see them from the top half up, and he's got like a like a really shimmery shirt on.
I believe
Like
it.
it's very sparkly and
Yeah.
open, and Erik is wearing a matching shirt.
Oh my gosh, y'all are Twinkies. So, Dave, what do you like about my boy?
Well, he says he's an amazing teacher. He's
Oh,
an amazing teacher. He says that not only what he has learned and been able to accomplish in the spirit world, but what so many other souls learn as well from Erik. And he says
wow.
that Erik brings a lot of souls that have a desire to work with humanity, to work with those on Earth for many different reasons. Erik is a very big conduit for that, a big
Oh,
teacher for
awesome.
that. So, and he says he's my mate, he's my pal. He says we not only work together, but we also like to relax together and pick some chords.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. That's so awesome here.
Mhm.
Dave, I always felt like you were like a star seed. There was something otherworldly about you.
He says yes, and he says that now he says a lot of different experiences through his life, particularly at one period of time where he said that he had a little bit of difficulty being grounded on the earth. And he didn't have the knowledge like he was channeling the information and he knew he was or anything like that. It wasn't like that. But knowing now in the afterlife, he certainly can connect it and understand why he had the interest that he did and why he played around with some of he's saying it like theories. Um, he's telling me that he is Arcturian and
Oh,
Lyran.
oh, interesting.
Mhm,
I can see the Lyran for sure. All right,
mhm.
so here's the questions that we gathered from our community members who are all awesome. So obviously you're fans. What was Mr. Bowie's main purpose on Earth in our lifetime that he can share with us?
He says there really were several things that he came into this life to do. He's talking about his main purpose for his own soul's growth, which was about connection, communication. And he says, although he didn't necessarily say my spiritual journey, it was a journey of connecting deeper with himself, of understanding himself. And then because of that, his role in humanity was to be able to take his uniqueness and to take his connection with himself to mirror that to others. And he says, whether that meant that somebody enjoyed my music or not, they had the opportunity to see something in me that they could then mirror and understand deeper about themselves.
Oh, wow, interesting. All right, David, you achieved such legendary fame in your pre-life plan. Why did you want to experience that? What did you want to learn from that, or was it there just to experience something else? I often ask myself the same question: What was I thinking in my pre-life plan? Just kidding, not.
He says, coming into the body prior to the physical life, he says, it's not that we are not aware of the challenges because we know there's going to be challenges. In fact, we invite those challenges, but he says there is this excitement to be able to experience and to know that we have an opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah.
And he says, and that's really what drives our soul. He says we are so deeply connected to each other that we drive that growth. And that's really what his plan was about growth and
Mhm.
how he was able to grow as an individual. And again, he says that the goal was always to be able to reflect it. And he says, he's talking about fame. He's like, fame is such a funny thing. And he never planned on the fame. It could have happened in different ways. Because he says it could have come out in a different form of art.
Yeah.
He's saying that his goal was to come in to express, to
Okay.
express this unique part of his soul. And music was a forerunner, but he also is very artistic. And so he said it could have come out in a different way, but he said that there was a little bit of divine energy behind him to help push him out in front of the masses. But he's saying fame is such a funny thing. Fame
Yeah.
is such a funny thing. He says he could have done without it.
I
Like he
would
says,
I would hate to be famous. Ugh.
he says he loved people, but he didn't care if they didn't love him. Like so, there must have been people that gave him a lot of criticism, or it's like he's pushing the criticism away. Like you take me or
You
leave
had a
me.
lot of
Like I'm not
self-love.
here to please you.
So
Yeah,
you had, yeah, I guess you had a lot of self-love, right?
he worked on it.
That's awesome. Tell me about your transition. What was that like? This is not one of the questions, or it may come up later. I just don't see it.
He says glorious. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. He says, he's showing me a great big cloud that looks like a car. So it's got wheels and it's like it's moving and coming towards him. And
Wow.
he jumps in, not opening a door. It's a convertible, just to tell you. So he just jumps on in and it can see him like floating off away. And there's somebody else driving it. And he turns around. He says, brilliant. So much love. He says, filled with so much love. And he says, he left the physical world surrounded in love and he received so much love upon his transition. Took him a little time to get comfortable, he
Yeah.
says, but he certainly made that happen
Well, I
with
just read
help.
you died of liver cancer. What was that caused by? Was it an
Yes.
exit point? We were pretty young.
He says that yes, that was an exit point. He had done everything that he had really intended on doing. He'd finished and completed the goals in this life.
Yeah.
He says it was time for him to head back and to be able to take all that he had learned through this life and others and start working on where he could share that because he's quite the he says you can call me a guide if you want. He'd rather be called a friend, but he's quite the friend to many on earth. He
Oh.
supports many that are working through not only expressing themselves in the world, but really helping them connect to themselves, to
Mm.
accept themselves. And so he just says that he's just so pleased to be able to have this experience now. It, and he says that with liver cancer, did it have to be that way? No. He says there was a lot of physical attributes to some of the choices that he'd made, some of the things that he had put in his body. So if it weren't liver cancer, he says it could have been the stomach. He says it
Oh.
could have been the heart. Um, he says that there were different areas in the body that the energy could have manifested,
Yeah.
but his exit point would have happened within that time. And he actually says it was an aligned exit point. So, where some, Erik is saying, some will have an exit point that is over a course of a year in our
Oh,
understanding.
yeah.
So a year could be your exit point. So it could happen in whatever way. But his was very finite because they're
Yeah.
showing me like right down to the moment. Like
Yeah,
this
well,
is
it's
your
true. It's
time.
2 days after the release of your 26th and final studio album, Black Star. So that sounds right. All right, here's a kind of a long one, but I think it just is one question, and when you condense it, I think we've already answered it. I know it doesn't matter whether you were an earthling or a star seed, but I've always thought you were bringing in me too, an extraterrestrial energy. Were you, let me just finish those thing. Were you a star seed, meaning you had many parallel lives on other or planets, or were you a fork, meaning some extraterrestrial consciousness projected into the human body of David Bowie? Please, Lisa, make sure they understand the difference by asking for Erik's help.
Yes, he says yes. He says that there was some projected energy. He says that's very common for many star seeds. Um,
So you can be
he
both.
have yes, he says he had lifetimes off planet, but he also had lifetimes on the planet. So it wasn't as though he
Planet
had
Earth?
many. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. He's had several lifetimes on planet Earth. Yes.
If the latest is true, like it was a fork thing, which alien species were you, what was projected into your consciousness as David Bowie? Arcturian, Lyrian? You mentioned those two.
Um, More Lyrian in this
Okay.
lifetime.
Yeah, he looks like it. Okay. Can you tell us about your experience with the occult when you were living in Los Angeles around 74, 76, and if your after death reality brings any new perspective to these events? I know nothing about that. Did you have experiences with the occult in LA?
He says yes, that he did. He's actually calling it very surface. He says that there was a lot of like drugs in
Mm.
that time frame. So he's showing me not being completely grounded at all times.
Mm.
So like there wasn't a deep experience. He wasn't connecting in ritual. It was more
Oh,
of a he's keeps going on the top layer, like he's not getting in
okay.
real deep. He's on the top layer of it. What he also says though is that he had a little bit of fun at that time with the media. um
Oh,
like he had a little bit of fun with people, because he knew he was
being
being
freaked out.
watched or like listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 because he's doing like a little bit of like woo.
Wow. The various demonic hauntings of David Bowie. I'm just looking this up. Bowie and the Occult, season of the Witch extract. The story of David Bowie drawing a Kabbalistic tree of life in the studio when he was recording station to station. So anyway, so you just kind of had fun with it, right?
He did, but he also says, like, let's keep in mind the fact that that was even in his awareness and part of his experience, that there was an intuitive part of the soul that was coming in to start to fill in the larger than the physical life. So he did have an awareness, a curiosity, he said would be a good way to explain it. And he's also connecting with symbols. So, like, found things to be symbolic.
Okay.
He
So
liked
you're
the
interested
symbols.
in symbols. So the
Yes.
occult that you had experiences with was it nefarious
Um,
or not?
he he said that there was some darkness, yes. Because he is bringing up some real true fear that he had, but he keeps pointing to hallucinogenics, like
Oh yeah.
amplifying the experience. And he really could not at some points separate reality, like what is it. And so now he can see that he was tapping into a reality,
Wow.
but he's got fear around this, a
Okay.
little bit of fear. So it did shake him in some ways, yes.
Okay. Interesting. What would you say to the musicians and the music industry today?
Well, he says Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Are you really doing this for your love of creation? Are you really doing this for your love of expression? Look for why you're really doing it, because if you're doing it for the love of fame, if you're doing it to climb some sort of a ladder, he says you're going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time. Don't forget what the roots are of why you're there. And if you remain to the reasons of why you're there, does it feel good? Is it part of your soul? Then you will continue to rise in a way that he says you'll always be supported, because he says that the music industry, um, if you don't know who you are, if you don't, if you're not grounded in yourself, you can be pulled along all over the place. And he says, and you have to be careful. And he says it's not only for the music industry, but let's look at many different areas of life. He goes, if you don't know who you are, you're going to follow along with things that aren't you. But back to the music industry, he says there's real danger. There's danger to your life.
Mm.
Um, and he says, and there's many that know that, and many that have lost their lives
Mm.
because of that.
What do you mean? How?
Um, he's showing it like he's actually holding out candy, and he's like, take the candy, take the candy, take the
Are you talking about
candy.
drugs and overdoses? That sort of
That's
thing?
part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it, yes. And it's like he's saying like a level of control, and he's saying the machine. The
Oh,
machine. Are you part of the
chosen it.
machine,
Yeah.
or are you independent? Yeah.
Mhm.
And he says that independent artists, and he's really highlighting, um, really look at your independent artists, because there's many that are very good, and they're doing it on their own. They're really making a name for themselves on their own. And he says it takes a lot of courage to do that when there's a lot of big music companies that um, he says really hold a lot of strings. It can make it very challenging for an independent artist.
Interesting. Will artists win more rights to their royalties?
Well, sorry, can you repeat that?
Will artists start winning more rights to their royalties? I said loyalties, but I think they mean royalties.
Well, he says it kind of goes back to what he was just
Yeah,
saying.
I figured.
He goes, really, that's basically the same explanation. So, each one has a path, and each one has a choice and a decision to make. And so, as a whole, the more that stand together, the more that allow themselves to hold on to their independence, the louder that voice will become to be able to get the royalties, to be able to have a more balanced
Okay,
career.
sounds good. Was David Bowie channeling when singing, performing, and recording his music? I think we already covered that. You didn't know
Yeah,
you, but you in
he
retrospect
didn't
you knew.
really know, but yes, yes, now he knows.
All right. What did you like most about the movie he was in called Labyrinth?
That's interesting because that's where he's identifying his lyrin, his
Oh,
like a lot of his lyrin soul, that part of his soul was coming through in that, and he's saying fantasy was like a fantasy. He enjoyed that because it was
oh,
playing into a fantasy, and he said that like he liked the character,
yeah,
playing into the character. Mm-hmm.
neat. I'm gonna look that up. I can't believe I said the word neat. Haven't done that for a decade. Neato. All right. What was your favorite and least favorite song to perform? And maybe there's no answer to that. I don't know.
No, he says that really mm, he's going into like albums, and he's not really picking out something in particular, because he says really it depended on where he was, because there might be a song that he had a really good time with or really enjoyed to do, and then he went to perform it and it wasn't his best performance. He says he gave his all in every performance, and so it was really about the energy of the entire thing, not really about one
Okay.
song or another. because some performances wouldn't be in his mind as great as another, but he was able to move past that pretty easily.
Look at this. I mean, that is you in Labyrinth. I mean, is that Lyran or what?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God. All right.
definitely.
Did you enjoy singing with Mick Jagger?
Yes, yes,
Good.
he did.
Okay.
Very positive energy around that.
Okay, you were such an iconic trailblazer. Did songs and ideas just come to you, or did you have some sort of special creative process? Maybe we already answered that.
Yeah, he says that was about expression, that was about transformation. He says he was particularly good throughout the years at taking how he would receive something, and being able to work on that inside him and then push it out. He's saying that that was just part of his nature,
Hmm,
part of his quality to be able to do that.
okay. If there's anyone who you would do a song with, who and why? And what would the song be like, be about?
Okay, so who he answers right away is Elvis Presley.
Okay.
He says because nobody would expect it.
That's true.
Um, Nobody would expect our combination, but he says that there's similarities in the two of them, that there are
Name one.
similarities in the soul.
Really? Can you name one?
Mm, passion, feeling,
Uh-oh.
depth.
Trash people. Okay. Let me read this and I'll mute. I know you are kind of celebrating. I know that you kind of celebrated dying, but do you remember crossing over? And what was it like? We already know that. But oh no, no, no. Okay. I actually stopped the video.
He just keeps going on about there being so much love. His crossing being, it's very dreamy, like everything that he's showing me with his crossing over are like a lot of clouds, and they're not all like white clouds. They're pink, they're orange, they're light green. He's saying very dreamlike, very much full of love. He says initially in his crossing over, before he had any sort of life review, he says that most of it was just getting comfortable with being out of the body, just getting comfortable with being a spirit.
Wow.
And he says that we have to remind ourselves of our spirit selves, because he's talking about it as being a process of, he goes, when if you're outside and you're in the winter time and you're all dressed up for the warmth and you're bundled and bundled and bundled, and you've got, for whatever reason, he's saying plastic bags in your boots and you're
Ah,
all bundled up tight. He goes, well, when you come in, you have to defrost for a minute. You have to then step out of your boots, take the plastic off, and he's like taking everything and hanging it up on a radiator, like letting everything dry.
funny.
He goes, so there's a bit of a process to take place. So he goes, and that's what I did before I got comfortable and twiddled my toes in front of the fire.
Do you ever hang out with Freddie Mercury? I'm gonna mute.
Yes, yes, yes. And he says that Freddie Mercury is also much like himself. He says many of us are part of a soul group, which Erik is part of as well, that works with as guides, that works with many people on the earth.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
People listening right now, he says, know each of us as guides to them.
Well, how about that? Are you still singing, composing, and jamming in heaven? I take it as a yes.
Of course.
Who do you enjoy jamming with the most? Is it Elvis or somebody else?
He says source.
Oh, wow. Let's bring in the big guy slash girl.
Yeah,
Okay, what was
yeah.
your favorite part? Oh, go ahead.
I just gotta tell you, he just showed he gave me an image of the biggest electric guitar you've ever seen.
Oh my
It's
God.
like huge, like universal size, and David Bowie's like this tiny little speck with
Yeah.
it. So he's quite funny. He's very
That's
funny.
funny. So, what was your favorite part of living in Berlin?
He says that was a time of change in his life.
Hmm.
Um, he's talking about music, and also he says best way to relate it would be um, going inside, like deeper for himself. He says he had habits that he wanted to let go of, and so it was a change of scenery. He also enjoyed the culture. He's talking about the scenery, um, but he says he created music there. He
Wow.
created in general. So it was a good time in life. Like he's showing like a demarcation point from one point to another in his
Okay.
life.
Uh, I think we'll stop here and then I will start recording part two. We don't have that many questions yet, but I want to keep it short. Okay, and this is
Sounds good.
good. So you guys check her out. Click the link below. Thank you, David and Erik. Just stay tuned, and we'll get right back to you. You guys. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss part two. All right. Thank you.